The little boy's laughter echoed through the shopping mall as he scrambled away from his mother's searching hands. At 5 years old, Caleb had discovered the wonder of independence, and today, that wonder had led him straight to the most magical sight he'd ever seen. A real Santa Claus. Not the tired-looking one from previous years, but someone different, someone whose eyes crinkled with genuine warmth when Caleb climbed onto his lap without hesitation. "Well, hello there, young man," the Santa said, his voice deep and gentle. There was something about that voice, something that made Caleb feel safe in a way he couldn't explain. "Hi, Santa. I'm Caleb." The boy grinned, revealing a missing front tooth. "I've been really good this year." The man in the red suit smiled, but behind the white beard, something flickered in his dark eyes. A recognition he couldn't quite place. "I'm sure you've been. What's your favorite thing to do, Caleb?" "I like to draw, and I like dinosaurs. And I really like spending time with my mama. She works a lot, but she always makes time for me." "Your mama sounds like a wonderful person." "She is. She's the best. But sometimes she looks sad. I wish Santa could bring her something that makes her smile more." The word struck something deep in the man's chest. He'd been doing this gig for 3 weeks now, playing Santa at various malls and events across the city. It was just one of many odd jobs he picked up to make ends meet. But this child, this beautiful little boy with bright eyes and infectious smile, felt different somehow. "What would make your mama happy, do you think?" Caleb tilted his head, considering the question with a seriousness only a 5-year-old could muster. "I think she wants someone to love her like she loves me. She doesn't talk about it, but I hear her crying sometimes at night." Before the Santa could respond, a woman's panicked voice cut through the holiday music. Caleb, where are you?" The boy turned. "That's my mama. She's probably worried." Then she appeared, rushing to the crowd in an elegant cream coat, her natural hair pulled back in a neat bun, her face etched with worry. Naomi Wellington. The same Naomi Wellington who had stolen his heart 6 years ago. The same woman whose father had destroyed his life. The same woman he'd never stopped loving, not for a single day. Their eyes met over the child's head, and the world stopped. Naomi froze mid-step, her mouth falling open. The color drained from her face as she stared at the man in the Santa costume. Even with the beard, even with the red suit and the padding, she knew those eyes. She would know them anywhere. They had haunted her dreams for 6 long years. Marcus. The name came out as barely a whisper. The little boy looked between them, confused by the sudden tension. "Mama, do you know Santa?" Marcus couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare at the woman he'd loved and lost. She was even more beautiful than he remembered. Older, yes, but there was a strength in her face now that hadn't been there before. And standing before her, looking up at her with those same dark eyes Marcus saw in the mirror every morning, was a child. Their child. He knew it with absolute certainty, felt it in his bones. Naomi. Her name felt like coming home and being exiled all at once. She moved forward slowly, like she was approaching something fragile that might shatter. When she reached them, she knelt down beside Caleb, her hand shaking as she smoothed his hair. "Baby, why didn't you go get a candy cane from the nice elf over there? Mama needs to talk to Santa for just a minute." Caleb looked uncertain, glancing between the 2 adults who were staring at each other like the rest of the world had disappeared. But the promise of candy was too tempting. "Okay, Mama. Bye, Santa. You're the nicest Santa I ever met." As the boys skipped away, Marcus and Naomi remained frozen, separated by less than 3 feet, but feeling like continents stood between them. "Is he?" Marcus started, his voice rough with emotion. "Yes." Naomi's eyes filled with tears. "His name is Caleb. He's 5. And he's yours, Marcus. He's ours." 6 years vanished in an instant. Marcus was 23 again, young and hopeful, working as a personal assistant to Harold Wellington, one of the wealthiest businessmen in the city. It had been a dream job, one he'd worked 3 jobs to put himself through business school to get. He'd been so proud, so determined to make something of himself. And then he'd met Naomi. She'd been 22, fresh out of college with a degree in marketing, working in her father's company not because she had to, but because she wanted to prove herself. They'd met in the break room. She'd been crying, frustrated after a meeting where her ideas had been dismissed. He'd offered her a tissue and a quiet place to vent. That small act of kindness had sparked a friendship that burned into something neither of them could control. For 6 months, they'd hidden their relationship, meeting in secret, stealing moments when her father was away on business trips. Marcus knew it was dangerous, knew that Harold Wellington would never approve of his daughter dating a member of his staff, especially not a black man from the wrong side of town who'd clawed his way up from nothing. But love doesn't ask for permission. Love doesn't care about circumstances or consequences. Until those consequences crash down around you. The day Harold found out, he'd summoned Marcus to his office. The older man hadn't yelled, hadn't raged. That would have been easier. Instead, he'd been cold, calculating, devastating. You're fired, effective immediately. And if I ever see you near my daughter again, I'll make sure you never work anywhere in this city. I have connections, Mr. Hayes. Connections that reach far and wide. Stay away from Naomi, or I'll bury you so deep you'll never see daylight again. Marcus had tried to fight it, had tried to see Naomi one last time. But Harold's security had escorted him from the building, and within days, every job application he submitted was mysteriously rejected. Every opportunity dried up. Friends stopped returning his calls. Doors that had been opened slammed shut. He'd left her a message, telling her he had to go, that her father had given him no choice. He'd told her he loved her and always would. And then, because he had no other option, he disappeared, taking whatever work he could find under the table, living in shadows, surviving but not living. Now, standing in this ridiculous Santa costume, face to face with the woman he'd never stopped loving and the son he'd never known existed, Marcus felt every wound reopen. "How long have you known," he asked quietly, "that I was pregnant?" "I found out 2 weeks after you left." Naomi's voice broke. "I tried to find you, Marcus. God, I tried so hard. But you'd vanished. Your phone was disconnected. Your apartment was empty. It was like you'd never existed. Your father made sure of that. I know. I didn't then, but I figured out eventually. By the time I understood what he'd done, I was 6 months pregnant and you were gone. I had Caleb, named him after my grandfather, the only person in my family who ever stood up to my father. And I raised him alone, Marcus. I raised our son alone." The accusation in her voice cut deeper than any blade. "I didn't know Naomi. If I had known, nothing your father could have done would have kept me away. Nothing." She looked at him then, really looked at him, took in the cheap Santa suit, the worn boots, the weariness in his eyes that spoke of hard years and harder choices. "What happened to you? Where have you been?" "Surviving. Your father kept his promise. I couldn't get legitimate work anywhere. Couldn't use my degree. Couldn't use my references. So I did what I had to do. Construction jobs paid in cash. Delivery driving. Bartending. Playing Santa for Christmas events. Whatever kept a roof over my head and food in my stomach. Oh, Marcus." The tears spilled over now, running down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It wasn't your fault. It was my father's fault. And I'm my father's daughter. I benefited from the same privilege that destroyed you." Caleb came bounding back then, a candy cane clutched in his small fist, his face smeared with red and white stripes. "Mama, why are you crying? Did Santa say I was on the naughty list?" Naomi laughed through her tears, pulling her son close. "No, baby, you're definitely on the nice list. The very top of the nice list." The boy looked relieved, then turned his attention back to Marcus. "Are you done being Santa soon? 'Cause my mama is really nice and she makes the best pancakes, and maybe you could come have pancakes with us." The innocent request hung in the air between the three of them. Naomi's eyes met Marcus's over their son's head, and in that moment, everything that had been broken, everything that had been stolen, crystallized into a single, painful truth. They had lost 6 years. Their son had grown without his father, and all of it, every single bit of it, had been taken from them by one man's pride and prejudice. "Caleb, sweetheart, Santa's very busy," Naomi started, but Marcus interrupted her. "I get off in an hour. Where do you live?" Naomi hesitated. The old Marcus would have known where she lived, would have been welcomed in her father's mansion. But that world was gone now. "I have my own place, not far from here. But Marcus, I don't want to impose. I know this must be overwhelming. You think I'm going to walk away from my son now that I know he exists? Not a chance, Naomi. Not a chance in hell." The intensity in his voice made her shiver. This wasn't the young, hopeful man she'd fallen in love with. This Marcus had been hardened by life, shaped by struggle. But underneath it all, she could still see him. Still see the man who had held her while she cried, who had believed in her dreams, who had loved her with everything he had. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers and typed her address into a new message, sending it to the number Marcus gave her. "Come whenever you're ready. We'll be waiting." As she took Caleb's hand and led him away, the little boy waved enthusiastically at Santa. Marcus waved back, his heart splitting open in his chest. He had a son, a beautiful, perfect son. And somehow, impossibly, Naomi was back in his life. The rest of his shift passed in a blur. Marcus went through the motions, posing for pictures with countless children, but his mind was miles away. In an apartment across town, where his son was probably chattering about Santa, and his mama was probably trying to figure out how to explain 6 years of absence. When he finally stripped off the costume and changed back into his worn jeans and faded jacket, Marcus caught sight of himself in the mirror. He looked tired, older than his 30 years. The years of struggle had left their mark, had carved lines around his eyes and mouth that shouldn't have been there yet. He lived in a small studio apartment in a neighborhood that had seen better days, worked multiple gigs just to make rent, drove a 15-year-old car that broke down more often than it ran. What did he have to offer Naomi now? What did he have to offer his son? But then he remembered Caleb's laughter, remembered the way Naomi's eyes had softened when she looked at him, and he thought maybe, just maybe, love was enough. It had to be enough. The address Naomi had given him led to a modern apartment building in a better part of town. Not the mansion she'd grown up in, but comfortable, safe, the kind of place Marcus dreamed of being able to afford. He stood outside for a full 5 minutes, gathering his courage before finally pressing the buzzer. "Come on up." Her voice crackled through the speaker, and the door clicked open. She was waiting in the hallway when the elevator opened. She'd changed into jeans and a soft sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked younger like this, more like the Naomi he remembered. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi." They stood there, two people who had once known every inch of each other, now strangers learning how to exist in the same space again. "Caleb is in his room playing. I thought maybe we should talk first, before I meet my son properly." "Yeah, that's probably smart." She led him into the apartment. It was warm, lived in, full of the evidence of a child's presence. Toys in a basket by the couch. Drawings stuck to the refrigerator. A small pair of sneakers by the door. This was Caleb's home. This was where his son had grown up without him. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, the space between them feeling vast. "I don't even know where to start," Naomi admitted, twisting her hands in her lap. "Start with why you didn't fight harder to find me." The words came out harsher than he'd intended, but he needed to know, needed to understand how 6 years could have passed with her never finding him. Naomi flinched but didn't look away. "I did fight Marcus. For months I searched. I hired a private investigator. I went to every place I thought you might be. But you covered your tracks well. And I was pregnant. Then I had a newborn, and my father was breathing down my neck, demanding I give up the baby for adoption, demanding I move on with my life and marry someone appropriate. But you didn't." "Of course I didn't. This baby was ours, Marcus. Part of you and part of me. How could I give that up? So I told my father I was keeping Caleb with or without his approval. I moved out of the mansion, got my own place, and raised our son. My father cut me off financially for a year, refused to speak to me. But eventually he came around, or at least he pretended to." "What does that mean?" It means he tolerates Caleb, sees him on holidays, buys him expensive presents that a 5-year-old doesn't need. But he's never once asked about you, never once acknowledged that his grandson has a father out there somewhere. Marcus absorbed this, trying to reconcile the image of Harold Wellington as a grandfather with a man who had so thoroughly destroyed his life. And you? What about you, Naomi? Did you move on? Find someone appropriate. She met his eyes then, and he saw the answer before she spoke it. How could I? You were for me, Marcus. You were always it. I dated a few people over the years, trying to give Caleb a father figure, trying to convince myself that I could love someone else. But it never worked, because none of them were you. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Marcus felt his chest tighten with emotion. 6 years of pain, 6 years of longing, and she'd been feeling it too. She'd been just as lost as he was. I've thought about you every single day, he said quietly. Even when I was angry, even when I convinced myself I hated you for not fighting hard enough, I still thought about you, still loved you. Marcus. His name was a sob. She moved across the couch, and suddenly she was in his arms, and it felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. She smelled the same, felt the same, fit against him like she'd been made specifically for this purpose. They held each other, 6 years of grief and loss pouring out in silent tears and shaking shoulders. All the words they'd never gotten to say, all the moments they'd missed, all the pain they'd endured separately, they were finally sharing together. A small voice broke through their reunion. Mama, why are you crying again? And why is Santa here without his costume? They pulled apart to find Caleb standing in the hallway, clutching a stuffed dinosaur and looking concerned. Marcus wiped his eyes quickly, trying to compose himself. He wasn't ready for this, wasn't prepared to meet his son as his father. But Naomi took his hand, squeezed it gently, and said, Caleb, baby, come here. There's something Mama needs to tell you. The little boy climbed onto the couch between them, his eyes wide and curious. Up close, Marcus could see even more of himself in the child. The shape of his nose, the curve of his mouth, the way his hair curled at the edges. This was his son, his flesh and blood. You know how you asked Santa what would make Mama happy? Naomi started, her voice gentle. Caleb nodded solemnly. Well, there's something that would make Mama very happy. And you too, I think. Caleb, this is Marcus. And Marcus is your daddy. The words landed like a bomb in the quiet apartment. Caleb's eyes went wide as saucers. He looked at Marcus, then at his mother, then back at Marcus. My daddy? My real daddy. Your real daddy, Naomi confirmed, tears streaming down her face again. He's been away for a long time, but now he's back. And if you want to get to know him, he'd like that very much. Marcus couldn't speak, could barely breathe. He watched as his son processed this information, saw the wheels turning in that bright young mind. And then, to his utter shock, Caleb threw his small arms around Marcus's neck and squeezed tight. I knew Santa would bring Mama something good, the boy whispered into his ear. I knew it. Marcus broke then, wrapped his arms around his son, and wept like he hadn't wept in years. All the pain, all the anger, all the bitterness dissolved in the face of this perfect, innocent love. His son, his beautiful boy who had somehow, impossibly, led him back to Naomi. They stayed like that for a long time, the three of them holding each other on the couch. Eventually, Caleb pulled back, his face serious. Where have you been, Daddy? Why didn't you come see me before? How do you explain betrayal and blacklisting to a 5-year-old? How do you make a child understand the cruelty of adults? Marcus looked at Naomi helplessly, and she stepped in. Daddy had to go away for work, baby, but it wasn't because he didn't want to be with us. He always wanted to be with us. Sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was enough for now. Caleb seemed to accept it, already moving on to the important questions. Do you like dinosaurs? I love dinosaurs. My favorite is a T-Rex because it's big and scary, but also kind of cool. And do you know how to play blocks? I'm really good at building towers. Marcus laughed, the sound rusty from disuse. I do like dinosaurs. and I would love to play blocks with you. That's how they spent the rest of the evening, building block towers, reading dinosaur books, and learning each other. Caleb was bright and funny, full of energy and questions. He showed Marcus every toy, every drawing, every treasured possession. And Marcus soaked it all in, memorizing every detail, terrified that this might be temporary, that he might wake up and find it was all a dream. Naomi watched them together, her heart simultaneously breaking and healing. This is what should have been. This is what her father had stolen from all of them. 6 years of moments just like this one. 6 years of bedtime stories and scraped knees and first words and first steps. All gone, stolen by prejudice and pride. When Caleb finally started yawning, she scooped him up. Bedtime, baby. Say goodnight to Daddy. Will you be here in the morning? Caleb asked Marcus, suddenly anxious. You won't go away again, will you? Marcus looked at Naomi, uncertain. This was her space, her life. He didn't want to overstep, but she nodded, giving him permission. I'll be here, he promised. I'm not going anywhere, Caleb. Not ever again. Satisfied, the boy kissed his mother's cheek and then shyly kissed Marcus's too. Good night, Daddy. The word hit Marcus like a freight train. Daddy. He was somebody's daddy. This incredible little person was calling him Daddy. After Naomi tucked Caleb in, she returned to find Marcus standing at the window, staring out at the city lights. She came up beside him, and they stood in comfortable silence for a moment. This is a lot to process, she said finally. That's an understatement. He turned to face her. Naomi, I want to be in his life, in both of your lives. But I need you to understand something. I'm not the man I was 6 years ago. Your father made sure of that. I live in a studio apartment that's barely big enough for me, let alone a family. I work odd jobs that pay cash under the table. I have nothing to offer you, nothing except the same love I've always had. She reached up and cupped his face in her hands. You think I care about money? You think I care about status? Marcus, I run my father's company now. He retired last year and handed everything over to me. I have more money than I know what to do with. What I don't have, what I've never had since you left, is happiness. You and Caleb, you're my happiness. You always have been. Your father will never accept this. You know that. My father doesn't get a vote anymore. I'm 30 years old, Marcus. I make my own decisions now, and I choose you. I've always chosen you. He wanted to believe her, wanted to let himself hope that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. But years of disappointment had taught him to be cautious. I need time, Naomi. Time to process all of this. Time to figure out how to be a father. Time to understand if this is real or if I'm going to wake up and find out it was all in my head. Take all the time you need. But Marcus, I meant what I said. I never stopped loving you. And I'm not letting you disappear again. Not now. Not ever. He kissed her then, unable to resist any longer. It was like coming up for air after drowning, like finding water in a desert, like every cliche about love he'd ever rolled his eyes at. Her lips were soft and familiar, and when she kissed him back, he felt something inside him that had been broken for 6 years start to heal. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. I should go. I have a morning shift delivering packages. But I'll come back tomorrow, if that's okay. It's more than okay. Come for breakfast. Caleb will want to see you. And Marcus, thank you. Thank you for giving us a chance. He left before he could change his mind, before he could beg to stay. The drive back to his tiny apartment felt longer than usual. When he got there, the contrast between Naomi's warm, comfortable home and his bare-bones studio was stark. This was his reality. This was what he had to offer. That night, Marcus lay in his narrow bed and stared at the ceiling. He had a son, a beautiful, perfect son named Caleb. And Naomi, the woman he'd never stopped loving, wanted him back in her life. It should have been the happiest moment of his existence. So why did he feel like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to fall? The next morning, Marcus showed up at Naomi's apartment with the cheap coffee maker he owned and a bag of the good coffee he couldn't usually afford. If he was going to do this, he was going to do it right. Caleb answered the door in dinosaur pajamas, his face lighting up when he saw Marcus. "Daddy, Mama said you were coming for pancakes. She's making chocolate chip ones because those are my favorite." The easy way his son said Daddy made Marcus's throat tight. He followed Caleb into the apartment, where Naomi was indeed making pancakes, her hair piled on top of her head, wearing an apron that said "Kiss the Cook." "Morning," she said with a shy smile. "I hope you're hungry." They ate breakfast together, and for a few hours, Marcus let himself pretend this was his life, that he woke up here every morning, that he got to see his son off to preschool and kiss Naomi goodbye before work. It was a beautiful fantasy, but reality intruded when Naomi's phone rang, and her face went pale as she looked at the caller ID. "It's my father. I have to take this." She stepped into the bedroom, and Marcus entertained Caleb with a story about a dinosaur who learned to fly. But he could hear her voice rising through the door, could hear the anger and frustration. When she emerged, she looked shaken. "He knows. I don't know how, but he knows you're back in my life." Marcus felt his blood run cold. "What did he say?" "He wants to see me. Alone. Says we need to discuss this situation before it gets out of hand." She laughed bitterly. "Out of hand? Like you're a problem that needs to be managed. Maybe you should go. Hear what he has to say." "Marcus, no. I'm not going to let him manipulate me again. I'm not saying listen to him. I'm saying know what we're up against. Your father is a powerful man, Naomi. If he decides to come after me again, I need to be prepared." She wanted to argue. He could see it in her eyes, but she also knew he was right. "Okay, I'll meet with him, but I'm not going alone. You're coming with me." "Naomi, that's not a good idea." "I don't care. If he has something to say about you, he can say it to your face. I'm done letting him control my life." And so, the next day, they found themselves in the lobby of Wellington Enterprises, the gleaming skyscraper that had once represented everything Marcus aspired to be. Now it just felt like the tower of a dragon, and they were walking into its lair. Harold Wellington hadn't changed much in 6 years. A bit grayer, perhaps a few more lines around his eyes, but the same cold disdain radiated from him as he looked at Marcus, standing next to his daughter. "So it's true. You let this man back into your life, into my grandson's life. Don't start, Dad." Naomi's voice was steel. "You don't get an opinion on who I let into my life. Not anymore. I'm your father. I have every right to be concerned when you're associating with someone who..." "Who what?" Marcus interrupted, stepping forward. "Who you blacklisted. Who you systematically destroyed because he had the audacity to love your daughter. Say it, Mr. Wellington. Say what you really mean." Harold's jaw tightened. "You were never good enough for her. You came from nothing. You were nothing." "Dad." Naomi's voice cracked like a whip, but Marcus held up a hand. "It's okay, Naomi. Let him say it. Let him finally be honest about why he really hated me. It wasn't because I worked for him. It wasn't because of some professional boundary. It was because I'm black and poor, and you couldn't stand the thought of your daughter with someone like me." The accusation hung in the air. Harold's face flushed red, but he didn't deny it. Couldn't deny it. "I built an empire," Harold said finally. "I built something for my daughter, for my family. And you would have destroyed all of that." "No, you destroyed it. You destroyed your relationship with your daughter. You stole 6 years from your grandson's life. You did that. Not me." Naomi moved to stand beside Marcus, taking his hand. "Daddy, I love you. I'll always love you. But you need to understand something. Marcus is Caleb's father. He's the man I love. And if you can't accept that, then you're choosing to not be part of our lives." Harold looked between them, seeming to really see them together for the first time. And maybe he saw something in Naomi's face, some determination that hadn't been there 6 years ago, because his expression shifted just slightly. "Does he make you happy?" The question surprised them both. Naomi squeezed Marcus's hand. "Yes, he makes me happier than I've been in 6 years." "And Caleb? What does Caleb think?" "Caleb adores him. They're like two peas in a pod. Harold was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed, suddenly looking every one of his 65 years. I can't say I'm happy about this. I can't say I understand it. But I see you standing there, holding his hand, looking at him the way your mother used to look at me. And I remember what it was like to be young and in love, to feel like the whole world was against you. Dad, I'm not finished. Hayes, I ruined your life. I admit that. I used my power and influence to systematically destroy every opportunity you had. And I'm not going to apologize for it, because I thought I was protecting my daughter. You weren't protecting me, Naomi said quietly. You were controlling me. I know that now. I've known it for a while. But I'm a stubborn old man who doesn't like admitting when he's wrong. Harold turned to Marcus. I can't undo what I did. Can't give you back those 6 years. But I can make sure you get a fair shot going forward. The blacklist will be lifted. If you want to use your business degree, if you want to work in your field again, I won't stand in your way. Marcus didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to throw the offer back in Harold's face. Wanted to tell him it was too little, too late. But he thought about Caleb, about being able to provide for his son, about having a future instead of just surviving day to day. Why now? Why the sudden change of heart? Because my daughter hasn't smiled at me in 6 years. Not a real smile. Not the way she used to. And because I have a 5-year-old grandson who asks why Grandpa never plays with him like Daddy does. And because I'm getting older and I'm starting to realize that being right isn't as important as being happy. Harold looked at Naomi. You're happy with him? Yes. Then I suppose I'll have to learn to live with it. He turned to leave, then paused. Naomi, that offer I made you last month, about taking over the company completely, is that still something you want? She looked at Marcus, then back at her father. Can I think about it? Take your time. But Hayes, don't make me regret this. I'm trusting you with the most precious thing in my life. Don't mess it up. After Harold left, Naomi and Marcus stood in the lobby in stunned silence. Did that really just happen? Marcus asked. I think my father just gave us his blessing. Sort of, in the most Harold Wellington way possible. They started laughing then, giddy and relieved and overwhelmed. It wasn't perfect. Harold's prejudices hadn't magically disappeared. But it was a start. It was more than either of them had dared to hope for. Over the next few months, Marcus and Naomi rebuilt their relationship slowly. Marcus got a job at a marketing firm, starting at entry level, but finally able to use his degree again. He moved out of his studio apartment and into a modest one-bedroom closer to Naomi's place. And every day he spent time with Caleb, learning how to be the father his son deserved. But it wasn't easy. There were nights when Marcus's pride chafed at the disparity between his life and Naomi's. Nights when he felt like he was playing catch-up, trying to fit into a world that had moved on without him. Naomi had built a life while he'd been stuck in survival mode, and sometimes that gap felt insurmountable. You're quiet tonight, Naomi observed one evening. They were at her apartment. Caleb was asleep in his room, and they'd been watching a movie. But Marcus's mind had been elsewhere, just thinking about. He hesitated, then decided honesty was better than silence. About how different our lives are. You run a company. You have money, security, a beautiful home. And I'm starting over at 30, living paycheck to paycheck again. What do I really have to offer you and Caleb? Naomi turned off the TV and faced him fully. Marcus Hayes, you listen to me. You offer us love. You offer us laughter and joy and the feeling of being a complete family. My money means nothing without you. This apartment is just walls without you in it. Don't you understand? You're not the one who needs to catch up. We've all been waiting for you to come home. But what about later? When Caleb gets older and starts noticing the differences, when he realizes his dad can't afford the things his grandfather can buy him, then we'll teach him that love matters more than things. We'll teach him what you learned the hard way. That character is built in struggle, not comfort. Marcus, my father had everything money could buy, and he almost lost his family because of his pride. You had nothing, and you never lost your capacity to love. Which one of those men do you think Caleb should aspire to be? Her words struck something deep in him. She was right. He knew she was right. But decades of being told he wasn't enough were hard to shake off. "I'm scared," he admitted. "Scared that this is too good to be true. Scared that something's going to come along and rip it all away again. Then we'll be scared together. But Marcus, we can't live in fear. We've lost too much time already. I don't want to waste another moment worrying about what might go wrong instead of enjoying what's going right." She kissed him then, soft and sweet, and Marcus let himself sink into the feeling. Let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. Christmas came, bringing with it a strange sense of completion. A year ago, Marcus had been alone, playing Santa for strangers' children, wondering if he'd ever have a family of his own. Now he was sitting in Naomi's living room, watching Caleb tear into presents, feeling more at home than he had in years. Harold even showed up, which was a surprise. The older man was stiff and formal, but he brought gifts for Caleb and actually sat on the floor to help build a complicated dinosaur toy. It wasn't perfect. There was still tension, still unspoken things that needed to be addressed. But it was progress. As evening fell and Caleb dozed on the couch between his mother and grandfather, Naomi looked at Marcus with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For coming back. For giving us another chance. For being brave enough to forgive. I should be thanking you. You raised our son alone. You fought your father. You never gave up on us. We never gave up on each other. That's what matters." Later that night, after Harold had left and Caleb was asleep, Marcus and Naomi stood on her balcony, looking out at the city lights. It was cold, snow starting to fall in soft, lazy flakes. Naomi shivered, and Marcus pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. "I've been thinking," Naomi said quietly, "about my father's offer, about taking over the company completely. And I think I want to say no." Marcus pulled back to look at her. "Naomi, that's your legacy. Your father built that company for you." "No, he built it for himself, for his ego, for his pride. I spent the last year running it. And you know what I've learned? I hate it. I hate the politics and the backstabbing and the constant pressure. I do it because it's expected of me, not because it makes me happy." "What would make you happy?" She turned to face him fully, and in her eyes, he saw the same determination she'd shown when she'd stood up to her father. "I want to start something new. Something that's mine, not my father's. I want to use my marketing degree to help small businesses grow. I want to mentor young entrepreneurs. I want to do something that matters, not just something that makes money." That's a big change. "I know, and it means downsizing, selling this apartment, maybe moving somewhere smaller, living on less. Can you handle that? Being with a woman who's choosing to give up wealth and status?" Marcus laughed, the sound echoing across the balcony. "Naomi Wellington, I fell in love with you when you were crying in a break room about not being taken seriously. I loved you when you snuck out of your father's mansion to meet me in parking garages. I loved you when you showed up at my studio apartment in your designer clothes and sat on my second-hand couch like it was a throne. I didn't fall in love with your money. I fell in love with you. Then I have one more question." She took a deep breath. "Move in with us. You and me and Caleb. A real family. What do you say?" Marcus thought about his small one-bedroom apartment, thought about the life he'd built over the past months, carefully reconstructing himself piece by piece, thought about the risk of moving too fast, of building something on a foundation that might still be shaky. Then he thought about Caleb's laugh, about Naomi's smile, about the way it felt to come home to them at the end of a long day, about the life they could have together if they were just brave enough to reach for it. "Yes," he said simply. "Yes to all of it." Naomi threw her arms around him, and they held each other as snow fell around them. Two people who had been lost finding their way home. The next few months were a whirlwind of change. Naomi officially resigned from Wellington Enterprises, much to her father's dismay. But true to his word, Harold didn't interfere. He wasn't happy about it, but he accepted her decision with more grace than anyone expected. Marcus moved into Naomi's apartment, and they started the complicated process of blending their lives together, teaching Caleb that Daddy lived with them now, learning each other's rhythms and routines, fighting about dishes and making up over ice cream, all the beautiful, mundane challenges of building a family. Naomi started her consulting business from home, and to everyone's surprise, it took off. Turned out there were a lot of small business owners who wanted advice from someone who understood both big corporate strategy and the scrappiness required to survive on limited resources. And Marcus, who'd spent years working odd jobs, was a wealth of practical knowledge. They made a good team. Always had, really. The 6 years apart had changed them both, but somehow they fit together even better now. They'd both been broken and put themselves back together, and the places where they'd healed were stronger than before. On a warm spring evening, 6 months after that conversation on the balcony, Marcus was playing with Caleb in the park near their new apartment. They'd downsized, like Naomi had suggested, to a place that was comfortable but not extravagant, a place they could afford on both their incomes, without relying on Naomi's inheritance. Caleb was on the swings, shrieking with joy every time Marcus pushed him higher. "Watch me fly, Daddy. Watch me." "I'm watching, buddy. You're the best flyer I've ever seen." Naomi sat on a nearby bench, watching them with a smile that hadn't left her face in months. Her father appeared beside her, moving with the careful steps of someone whose body was starting to betray him. "Dad, I didn't know you were coming by. I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd check in." He sat down heavily, watching his grandson play. "He's happy." "Yes, we all are. I can see that." Harold was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I was wrong about him. About Hayes. I judged him based on things that don't matter. Where he came from, what he looked like, how much money he had. And in doing so, I almost destroyed the best thing that ever happened to you." Naomi felt tears prick her eyes. Her father wasn't a man who apologized easily. Wasn't a man who admitted mistakes. "Dad, let me finish. I'm an old man, Naomi. I've spent my life building things, acquiring things, controlling things. And you know what I've learned? None of it matters if you don't have people to share it with." "I push you away. I pushed Hayes away. I almost missed knowing my grandson. And for what? Pride? Prejudice? Outdated ideas about class and status. You're here now. That's what matters. I want to make it right. Not for Hayes. Not for you. For me. Because I need to be able to look at myself in the mirror and not hate what I see." He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "This is a formal apology. Written. Signed. Acknowledging everything I did to sabotage his career 6 years ago. If he wants to use it, if he wants to take legal action, I won't fight it." Naomi took the envelope with shaking hands. "Dad, he's not going to sue you. Maybe not, but he should have the option. And there's something else. I've set up a trust fund for Caleb, for his education, for his future. But it's structured so that neither you nor Hayes can touch it until he turns 18. I don't want you to think I'm trying to buy my way back into your lives. I just want my grandson to have opportunities. The way Hayes should have had opportunities, if I hadn't taken them away." Naomi looked at her father, really looked at him, saw the regret etched into every line of his face, saw the old man he was becoming, trying desperately to make amends before it was too late. "Thank you, Dad. This means a lot. There's one more thing." Harold's voice dropped lower. "Your mother would have loved him. Hayes, I mean. She always had a better sense of people than I did. Always saw the heart of things where I only saw the surface. I think she would have welcomed him with open arms. Would have been thrilled to see you this happy." It was a mention of her mother, gone now for 5 years, that finally broke Naomi. She leaned into her father's shoulder and cried, and he held her awkwardly, the way he always had, never quite sure how to offer comfort, but trying anyway. When Marcus came over with Caleb, he found him like that. The little boy immediately scrambled onto his grandfather's lap, chattering about the swings. Marcus met Naomi's eyes over their son's head, a question in his gaze. She smiled through her tears and mouthed, later, that evening, after Caleb was asleep and they were curled up on the couch together, Naomi showed Marcus the letter. He read it slowly, his expression unreadable. When he finished, he folded it carefully and set it aside. "So," Naomi asked nervously, "what do you think?" I think your father is trying, and I think that's more than I ever expected from him. Marcus pulled her closer. I'm not going to use this. I don't need his apology on paper, but I appreciate the gesture. And the trust fund for Caleb? That's generous. More than generous. You're not angry about everything he took from us? Oh, I'm angry. I'll probably always carry some anger about those lost years. But I'm also grateful. Because if things had been easy, if your father had approved of us 6 years ago, would we have fought this hard to find our way back to each other? Would we appreciate what we have as much as we do now? You're saying you're glad he ruined your life? No, I'm saying I'm glad we survived it. There's a difference. Naomi kissed him then, long and deep and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. Marry me. Marcus blinked. What? Marry me, Marcus Hayes. I know it's not traditional for the woman to ask. I know we've only been officially back together for 6 months, but we've loved each other for 6 years. We have a child together. We've survived the worst and come out stronger. So marry me. Make us official. Make us forever. Marcus looked at her, this incredible woman who had fought her father, raised their son alone, given up wealth and status to be with him, and was now proposing to him on their second-hand couch in their modest apartment. How could he say anything but yes? On one condition, he said, his voice rough with emotion. What? Let me propose to you properly. Give me 2 weeks, and then ask me again. She smiled, understanding dawning in her eyes. Okay, 2 weeks. 15 days later, Marcus took Naomi and Caleb back to the mall where they'd reunited, back to the Santa display, which was now empty, waiting for next Christmas. He'd pulled some strings, called in a few favors, and arranged for them to have the space for an hour. Why are we here? Naomi asked, confused, because this is where our story started again. This is where I found out I was a father, where you found out I still loved you, where Caleb brought us back together. Marcus knelt down in front of her, right there on the Santa platform, and pulled out a ring. It wasn't much. He'd saved for weeks to afford it, skipping lunches and taking extra shifts. But it was real and it was honest and it was his. Naomi Wellington, 6 years ago your father asked me to leave you alone, to disappear from your life. And I did, because I thought that was what was best for you. But I was wrong. We were meant to be together. We were always meant to be together. Will you marry me? Naomi was crying again, nodding so hard she couldn't speak. Yes, 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 yes. Caleb, who'd been letting on the plan, jumped up and down. Daddy asked Mama to marry him. Now we're going to be a forever family. Marcus slipped a ring onto Naomi's finger, and she pulled him up into a kiss that felt like a beginning and an ending all at once. The end of their time apart. The beginning of their future together. They got married 3 months later in a small ceremony. No big wedding, no elaborate reception. Just close friends, Harold grudgingly giving away his daughter, and Caleb serving as ring bearer with utmost seriousness. It was perfect. Harold's health began declining that winter. Nothing serious at first, just a slow failing that comes with age. But it was enough to make him reflective, to make him want to spend more time with his family. He showed up for Caleb's 5th birthday party and actually played pin the tail on the donkey with the kids. He came to Sunday dinners and learned to keep his opinions to himself when he disagreed with Marcus's parenting choices. One evening, as Marcus was helping Caleb with homework and Naomi was cooking dinner, Harold pulled Marcus aside. I want to tell you something, before it's too late and I don't get the chance. Marcus set down the pencil he'd been using. Okay, you're a good father, a good man, better than I ever gave you credit for. And I'm sorry. I know I apologized to Naomi, gave you that letter, but I never said it to your face. I'm sorry, Hayes, for everything I did, for every door I closed, for every opportunity one destroyed. I was wrong, and you didn't deserve any of it. Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. I appreciate that, sir. And stop calling me sir. You're family now. Call me Harold, or if you can manage it, call me Dad. It was more than Marcus had ever hoped for. Thank you, Harold. That means a lot. One more thing. I've revised my will. Naomi already knows, but I thought you should too. I'm leaving the company to a foundation, one that will provide scholarships and job training for people from disadvantaged backgrounds. People like you. People who deserve a chance but don't get one because of circumstances beyond their control. Harold, that's incredible. It's the least I can do. I can't undo the past, but maybe I can help prevent the same thing from happening to someone else. He paused. You've made my daughter happier than I ever could. You've given my grandson a father who actually plays with him instead of just buying him things. And you've shown this old, stubborn man that love matters more than pedigree. So thank you for not giving up on us, for forgiving us, for being the man I should have seen you were 6 years ago. They shook hands then, and it felt like a peace treaty, like the war that had raged between them was finally, truly over. Harold passed away 2 years later, on a sunny afternoon in May. He was 60 years old and went peacefully in his sleep. At the funeral, Caleb held Marcus's hand and whispered, "Is Grandpa with Grandma now?" "I think so, buddy." "Good. Grandpa was sad without her. Now they can be together again." Out of the mouths of children came wisdom that adults spent lifetimes searching for. Marcus pulled his son close and looked at Naomi, who was speaking to mourners with the grace she'd inherited from both her parents. She caught his eye and smiled, and even in grief, there was love. In his will, Harold left them a letter. It was read privately, just the three of them in the lawyer's office. In it, he wrote about his regrets and his joys, about watching Caleb grow into a bright, kind boy, about seeing Naomi find her calling helping others succeed, about learning to respect and eventually love the man his daughter had chosen. But the last line was what stuck with Marcus. "Take care of them, Hayes. Take care of my girls and my grandson. You've already proven you can. Now prove you will for the rest of your life." "I will," Marcus whispered, folding the letter carefully. "I promise." And he did. For the next 40 years, Marcus Hayes kept that promise. He and Naomi built their consulting business into something meaningful, helping hundreds of small businesses succeed. They raised Caleb to be a man who valued character over status, love over money, kindness over pride. They had 2 more children, daughters who inherited Naomi's business sense and Marcus's gentle heart. They fought sometimes, because all couples fight, had disagreements about parenting and money, and whose turn it was to do the dishes. But they never let the sun go down on their anger, never let pride get in the way of love, never forgot how hard they'd fought to find each other again. On their 20th wedding anniversary, they took Caleb and his sisters back to that mall. The Santa display was up, and Marcus couldn't resist sitting in the big red chair, pulling Naomi onto his lap, while their kids groaned in embarrassment. "Remember when we met here?" Naomi whispered. "We didn't meet here. We met in a break room, and you were crying over a failed presentation." "No, we found each other again here. Started over. Got our second chance. Best second chance I ever got." Marcus kissed her softly. "I love you, Naomi Hayes." "I love you too, Marcus. Forever." Their daughters took pictures. Caleb pretended to be mortified, but was secretly pleased to see his parents so happy. And somewhere, Marcus liked to think Harold and his late wife were looking down and smiling. Because this was what love looked like. Not perfect, not always easy, but worth fighting for, worth waiting for, worth everything. And it all started with a little boy who climbed onto Santa's lap and wished for his mama to be happy. Sometimes wishes do come true. Sometimes love does conquer all. Sometimes a boy from the wrong side of town gets the girl, raises a family, and lives happily ever after. This was one of those times. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more.